Can somebody tell me if I'm live? Because today I went through a terrible technical glitch and it was like crazy. Facebook suddenly wanted to play a spoil sport and it wasn't letting me go online using a laptop. But anyways, I'm here and I'm like happy to be here. So good morning and let's begin the session today. So you may have actually be having a lot of negative thoughts, not just you. It's about everyone. Many people do that. So these are messages that you have learned when you're like really young. You learned it from a lot of different places, like other children, maybe your teachers, family members, your caregivers, and even the media. However, it turns out that that little voice in our head is completely natural, whether you are an introvert or an extrovert. Some people have just learned how to manage it. So, what would you need to do to quiet this negative inner voice? So, when our brain senses some imminent danger, it triggers the release of stress hormones. Adrenaline and cortisol helps to keep us safe in an emergency. But too much of these chemicals can actually make us sick. Don't get me wrong. At times, it is sometimes good to have this negative voices in your mind, because and I'll give you an example when it's good. It's something like that negative voice would suddenly say, no, you should not actually eat that entire biscuit packet for a breakfast. It's a good way of getting a self-control. So the little voice can sometimes keep us motivated towards our goals, but too much of these voices can actually impact our growth. So if negative voices are something that are impacting your day-to-day life, this session is for you. Perhaps those negative voices were always there. They come and they go. Sometimes they are a day ruiner, but if at all they are a life ruiner, you really have to take care of those. So let's get to know our inner chimp. So it was Professor Steve Peters who coined the chimp concept. We all have a chimp, a part of our subconscious, with us since our birth. It told us when to cry for attention, it stored our emotional memories, and tried to help us avoid emotional pain. The chimp had its hand hovering over that big red button of anxiety, ready and waiting with a catalog of negative thoughts. And because it predates the development of our logical mind, the chimp has cemented beliefs into our internal computer. They can take us over before our logical mind actually can reassure us. So negative thoughts can, take many forms. The thing about negative thoughts is that, it needs more of practice to get through it. So those negative thoughts, if you think in retrospect, don't usually reflect reality. So in the US, there was the psychiatrist called Dr. Aaron Beck, who recognized specific patterns to negative thinking, which he called cognitive distortions or distorted thinking. They are common, entirely normal, and absolutely not our fault. He researched, and his research formed the central part of cognitive behavioral therapy. And since then, there have been sort of 10 distorted thinking patterns. So I'll tell you the 10, and you have to decide what do you fall under. The first is polarized thinking. So polarized thinking is thinking about yourself and the world in an all or nothing way. It's all about, thinking in black or white. There is nothing gray. So either very good or very bad. The second is overgeneralization. It's a way of thinking where you apply one experience to all the experiences. For example, if you give one bad performance, you will always say that I am a bad performer, always. The third is mental filtering. Mental filtering is a term used to describe one type of cognitive distortion that can often lead to higher levels of anxiety and depression. When you're thinking through a mental filter, a person is focusing only on the negative aspect of a situation and filtering out the positive ones. The fourth is discounting the positive. So here what happens is you reject the positive experiences by insisting that they don't count at all. The fifth is mind reading. Mind reading is when we try to infer what's going on in someone else's mind without asking them for a clarity. The sixth is cataphrasing. It is when someone assumes that the worst is going to happen. Emotional reasoning is the next one. It's a cognitive process by which the individual concludes that their emotional reaction proves something true despite contrary evidence. Okay, that's an emotional reasoning. We attach emotions to particular situations and we find reasons. The next is should statements. It's a type of negative thinking pattern that causes a lot of doubt and fear in a person. Labeling is defined, as describing a person. You generally label a person or a behavior. And the last one is personalization and blame. When I personalize, I assume the guilt for things that go wrong out of my control. And blame is the exact opposite of this. I blame someone else for the situation. So behind both the forms, there is an assumption, and that it must be somebody's fault, either mine or somebody else. So these were the type of distortions. I don't know whether you could, relate yourself under either of these categories, because this is a very, very important, important basis of CBT. So let's see some tips to turn those negative thoughts into positive. Can we do that? Of course we can. Why not? Because brain is also like a muscle. The minute you start working it out the way we want it to, it will develop that muscle. We work on biceps, we would form biceps. We work on triceps, there will be triceps which are forming. Similarly, if we start thinking positive, if we start training our mind to think positive, you will have positive thoughts coming. So over a period of time, due to neuroplasticity, habitual negative thinking patterns, happen in our brains. So scientists say that our brains are always looking to make habits because they are always looking for ways to save effort. We are sort of lazy. So that's how it is. But a habit cannot be eradicated. It can be only replaced. You have to go back to the very beginning of the stimulus and replace the current response with a different one. So how many times have you listed all the positive steps that you are going to take and have not acted on it? That's because doing something negative is more easier. So don't let negative thinking become a lifelong habit. I'm going to give you some tips, precisely 12 tips to help you work overcoming your negative habits and become more positive. The first and foremost thing is something which which is like a mantra for everyone. Start a journal. Acknowledge the negative thoughts. Don't try to push them away. Whenever there's a negative thought that comes into your mind, note it down. Whether it is at some time when you're having your lunch, dinner, or whether you're out doing something or you're working, the minute you have a negative thought crossing by your mind, you need to note it down. So carry a small pad with you as you go about on your daily routine for several days and jot down every negative emotion or thought that comes to your notice. So once you make a journal, when you're in a good mood, when you're in a positive frame of mind, what you have to do is you have to evaluate those messages. Is this message really true? What would a person say this to another? Why would this particular thing that I've said to myself, is it something that I would say to someone else? If not, why am I even saying that to me? What do I, get as an outcome? What do I get out of thinking so much about this particular fact, which is a perceived fact, which is not a fact, which is a negative thought? So the next step in this process is to develop positive statements you can say to yourself to replace these negative thoughts whenever you notice you're thinking about them. You can't think of two thoughts at the same time. So what you have to do is that take a page, divide it into two halves. In one, you have to write the negative statements, and in the other column, write the exact positive of the negative that was there. So you can work by changing your thoughts to positive ones by replacing the negative thoughts with a positive one every time you realize that you are thinking of a negative thought. Repeating your positive thoughts over and over again to yourself or loudly whenever you get a chance, and even sharing them with another person if possible. Third, writing them over and over again. Fourth, making signs that say positive thoughts, hanging them in places you would see them very often. Maybe like your wardrobe door, your refrigerator, wherever you can see it. Now, the second point, ask yourself, what would I say to a friend? We tend to find it easier to be kinder to others than to ourselves. We are extremely harsh when it comes to our own self. So there's a very simple exercise developed to aid children in reframing cognitive distortions, teaching them to recognize blue thoughts, blaming myself, looking for the bad news, unhappy guessing, and being exaggeratedly negative. And this works for adults also. Imagine that you have to imagine that your friend is going through this situation, and what would be the advice you will give. The next is very simple but needs practice. Say stop. Becoming aware of your chimp and its patterns takes time. When you actually spot it, say stop. You have to say this aloud and tell the chimp how to behave. The fourth is changing negativity to neutrality. So a journey from negative to positive might be a little difficult, but journey from negative to neutrality is a little more simpler. So what you have to do is you literally have to switch off when you have negative thoughts. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me or hindering me in my journey to become the best version of me? And the minute you do that, you know that you're getting negative and you switch off. The next is create an SOS file of positive praise. It's a beautiful way of doing. Compile all the positive feedbacks, emails, comments that you get from your friends, your family, your clients, to dig out whenever you're feeling insecure. Sometimes it actually is a lifesaver. I do this pretty often whenever I'm going through a rough day. I see all my patient feedbacks that I have got over a period of years, and that makes my day. That gets me back into action. The sixth is breathe. So in the words of Mr. Miyagi, when you feel life is out of focus, always return to the basic of life. And what's that? Breathing. No breath, no life. Every day use 4-7-8 breathing technique. 4 is inhale, hold, and exhale for 8 breathing technique. You can do it throughout the day or as an SOS when you're feeling negative. It'll quickly make you calm wherever you are, and it'll make you think. The next, talk to somebody you trust. Whether it's a therapist, whether it's a close friend or a colleague, with an understanding of the exact boat, who has an exact understanding of the boat you're in, As long as it's someone supportive, who will identify the positives in you and put any negative thoughts into perspective. The next is a cliche again. Follow a good and healthy lifestyle. Exercise positively affects mood and also reduces stress. The more oxygen that comes into the brain, the more is the memory and the more is the concentration. Exercise also reduces your blood pressure and releases chemicals in the brain that actually make you feel happier and more relaxed. The ninth is identify areas in your life which needs a change. Maybe it may be work, it may be relationship, or whatever. Start by focusing on one small area and how do you want to approach that area in a more positive way. The 10th is surrounding surround yourself with positive people, absolutely positive people. Negative people will likely increase your stress. It's very evident. They are going to doubt your abilities and make you think more negative. So instead, look at people who are naturally positive. There are people who are naturally positive, or even if not positive, at least neutral. 11th is practice self-compassion. The book, The Kindness Cure, points out that self-criticism just makes us feel stuck. But replacing disapproval and self-judgment with self-compassion allows you to accept yourself in a gentle way, even though you're flawed, strengthening your mental wellness. And the last one is practice positive self-talk out aloud. Use your name, not I. Creating an emotional distance in our self-talk can help us calm down a little. It helps us see things more clearly and more rationally. And it's been proven by University of Michigan psychologist Ethan Kross. So these are 12 techniques which are proven to help change your mental framework from negative to positive. So changing the thoughts you have about yourself to positive ones take time. And it doesn't happen over a period of a day or two. If you use these techniques consistently for 4 to 6 weeks, you will notice that you don't think these negative thoughts about yourself as much. If they recur at any point in time, you can repeat these activities. Don't give up. You deserve to think good thoughts about yourself. These are suggestions that I wanted to give you as a beginner. As you work on building your self-esteem, you will notice that you will feel much more better and you will enjoy life more than what you do when you're in a negative state of mind. For me, as a person who goes through pain, these are steps which have helped me also, because pain is again a negative frame of mind. And when I go through these steps consistently, it does help me get out of that cycle of blame and self-pity. So please give it a try, and in case it's something that's helped you, drop a comment. I'll be very happy to see the progress that you guys are making. And thank you everyone for joining me today for this session, and I loved meeting you all again. And I'll see you soon with some other topic. In case there's something you want me to speak about specifically, please feel free to drop me a message. I'll be more than happy to take it. Thank you and have a lovely day ahead. Bye-bye.